What is going on, Comic Fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and I'm welcoming back to the show Darcy Van Poelgeest. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you for having me back.
I'm so excited. Last time we got to talk and kind of your journey into comics, and it's really fitting because we spent a lot of time talking about Lil Bird, and then we were starting to tease a little bit of Lotus Land because I think issue one had just come out, but we couldn't go too deep into it. And now it feels like we're going to be the reverse. We'll talk a little bit Lotus Land, but we're really going to dig into the world of Lil Bird. So
We're
welcome back.
rolling into the next thing here.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
uh, it's I think I had you back on in the fall. How has it been going since we last talked?
Oh, good. Yeah. Super busy. I'm just, of course, yeah. Lotus Land wrapped up, and just as precious metal was ramping in, and so now I'm in that. I'm delivering issues while fine tuning lettering on the forthcoming ones and dealing with stuff in the middle. So it's become all consuming.
Yeah. Do you have to switch hats kind of like mentally, like, okay, talking about precious metal, but I've been so focused on low. Like, where are you at, like, mentally in the headspace when you're prepping to do these interviews and stuff?
Yeah, there I'm fully in precious metal now. It's
Yeah.
really almost all I'm thinking about. But there always is that transition period, and but I'm used to that, and yeah, you learn to switch over and
So I
and
wanna I wanna hop into precious metal, like we said here. But before we do, I'd be remiss if we didn't touch on Lois Lane a little bit. It was your book that just come out, 6 issues, from Boom Studios, wrapped up. I want to say last month, or was it last month? 2 months ago.
maybe 2 months ago now.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I'm guessing the trade's coming out this summer.
I think it's a fall
Okay,
release. They seem to be like pushing back a little bit further now. At least that's been my. But yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So Lotus Land, people got to experience it. I'm I loved it because it felt like something completely different from Lil Bird, which was what I originally, got to know you and fell in love with your work with. So how was it for you of having, now that you've gotten another series under your belt of, I mean, I know you've done other stuff as well, but like talking here with Boom Studios, you had the Lil Bird with Image, uh, this being a 6 issue arc, working with who was the artist? It was different from
Kyle Felipe.
yes, which was fantastic. Just if people haven't gotten to hear about Lotus Land a little bit, what was it about, and kind of, yeah, sell it on them.
Yeah, well, Lotus Sign, it was very different from Little Bird, and that was sort of intentional. I just wanted to and like sort of reach out and do some other things that I'd been thinking about. And of course, I wrote a series, a mini series for Critical Role, which was like
Hmm.
pure fantasy, and that was very different as well. So I do like to jump around and play in different genres a little bit. And but yeah, Lotus Land was like really a sci-fi noir mystery, and really, I think I mentioned this last time I was on, but I'm just a huge noir fan. That's sort
Yeah,
of like my comfort zone in terms of like the books I like to read and films I like to watch. I watch everything, but like that's sort of, if I'm sick at home, boom, I'm watching a noir film. There's no questions about it. And so I just wanted to create that experience for myself. And so it is really purely noir, not just in aesthetic, but in terms of tone and, something we don't see in comics often, which is sort of, an anti-climax kind of thing. Not everybody's favorite way to end a book, but very true to the genre. And I wanted to or not everyone's favorite way to end a story these days, I think,
yeah.
but that's not particular to comics. But that was something that I always have really loved about that genre, and something I wanted to do.
Well, it was really good, and like rereading it again once that they all came out, and there's little things that happen, in the first issue that then happen in the sixth issue, and like it ties it all together. And I'm like, so good. And you can tell that you
Thank
have
you.
the noir vibe, the narration, as the detective's trying to figure out what's going on as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I did not shy away from leaning into that pretty heavily. Yeah.
no, as no, you shouldn't have. It was perfect to lean into that fully. So if you haven't gotten a chance to check it out, gang, I highly recommend it. 6 issues, you will fly through it. So I encourage you to just pause because the artwork is fantastic as well. Um, it's just a well done all around. So highly pick it up from Boom when the trade comes out in the fall. You're not going to want to miss out on. But
Yes, do exactly that. I think it'll read really well as a book too.
yeah,
That was a comment I think that came up a few times as it was coming out, and it's like, yeah, it it works really well that way.
it
Um,
well because I read it in single issues, and again, like I said, once they all came out, I went back and reread them in one sitting, and I'm able to pick up stuff. When you're reading it a month in between
yeah,
sometimes.
you forget you've read a million other things between. Yeah, so the
I,
experience, yeah, the was it a better experience? Do you think? Hard because it's second time reading too. So
it's it's a different experience. I want to say better because there is still something about the art form of reading an issue, getting to kind of digest it, wait for a month, talk to your friends about, oh, I like this. Oh, I think this is coming.
yeah,
So if I read something in trade that I haven't gotten to kind of sit down and read it over a time, it's a different experience. And it's not necessarily a bad experience, but
just a different.
I wouldn't have spent as much time trying to process through. And, the second reread, I'm able to pick up things that I might not have noticed, or
Yeah,
that I remember details, or like something that happened in issue 5, I know remember just because I'm like, "Oh, I just read issue 5." So when they reference it, it's just easier. So again, yeah,
yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thing about comics is you have a different art. It's an art form, but it's the way it's put out, it's completely different because you don't take any other medium like that. Like you wouldn't go to a movie and watch a quarter of a
It's totally
movie
true, and
and then a month later another quarter.
yeah, I really like trying to, um, design stories that encourage you to flip back. Like, I feel like
Mm,
that is such a unique thing to the comic format where, like, you can read something and be like, "Oh, well, wait a second," then flip back 5 pages and, like, at least I like that where you can have sort of a linear, nonlinear um, experience with the
yeah.
story. And so Lotus Land, I think is another one of those where you're able to sort of like, every chapter, every few pages, it sort of invites you to go back and be like, well, did I read that right? And then go forward. Everything it's saying is it's usually talking about more than one thing.
Mhm.
So it leaves sort of a trail back if you're
Yeah.
willing to take it. Yeah.
Do I guess the look inside maybe your writing mind a little bit. Does that play into it when you're writing of knowing that someone's gonna potentially consume this, in an issue and then a month later, like, does that shift how you write it at all? Or do you just like, I have the story I'm gonna tell knowing that they're gonna break up this way?
I don't know that I'm aware of endings
Yeah.
and what endings mean and how I like them to feel and building in cliffhangers and all that kind of stuff. I'm aware of that. Um, and I'm not really thinking of that so much as so. Yes, yeah. I guess to answer your question, yeah, I'm aware of that for
Yeah.
sure.
Well,
Yeah,
it's just it's the idea of, if you pick up a book, they buy the book. Where the a comic, you're like, all right, it's six. I'm trying to get you to buy 6 books of this book, and
right.
so like you said, you're aware of the ending, the cliffhangers and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that when for because I am doing a graphic novel that I've been working on for a while at Image, which is again completely different from anything else I've done. And the one thing that's nice is you don't feel the pressure to build in those cliffhangers that you do with sort of like monthly comics, which I resist that temptation anyway, but I think that there can be a lot of pressure to really make every ending big,
Mm,
and I might have even touched on this before, but I feel like we maybe talked about this, but making every ending big just becomes sort of it becomes a rundown in the
mm,
long run. Like I feel like every ending should ideally be a little bigger than the last, right?
yeah.
And so if you're going for that smash, holy shit, the whole world just got turned upside down, issue one, it's cool. I get it. I like it. It definitely gets you back for the second issue, but then it can start to feel like a bit of a letdown after
Mm,
that. So um, Yeah, so it's tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah.
When you have someone in a book, it's like they're moving on to that next chapter. You can really just focus on great storytelling, great character development, and not worry so much about building in that massive hook at the end of the first issue or,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we kind of did hit on it a little bit because I do
Yeah,
remember
it's
you
coming back
saying
to me now.
you said at one point you're like issue one, you know, is there, but then issue two just goes builds, and then issue three builds. Like it
Yeah.
almost like steps it up each level with what you're getting and rereading. You're like, oh yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, the end of the 5th issue was just like, so much fun because we finally like really cut loose and Kyle's work, because what I'm alluding to, if you haven't read it, is like there's not a ton of action. Like there's action. It's not boring, but like the end of the 5th issue, it kind of turns into like a sort of minor bloodbath, and it's so fun to finally get there.
yeah,
If you haven't had that, if every issue is just a violent mess, it gets boring.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I had a ton of fun. A
yeah.
lot of
And
fun with it.
again, gang, go check it out. Check out the trade when it comes out. But Darcy, one of the reasons we had to talk was because Precious Metal is upon us finally. Your prequel to Little Bird. Tell people if they don't know what we're talking about with Precious Metal. What is this?
Yeah, Precious Metal is a brand new story in the Little Bird universe that takes place 35 years before Little Bird. I'm always a little hesitant to call it a prequel because it's different protagonists,
Yeah,
takes place in a different place. It's an entirely different feel to the story. Because when you're getting a story, like I always start with character, that everything builds up from there, including the world. And with Little Bird, you're really talking about like a child soldier, but a
right.
child. And this is this character is like a 35-year-old beaten down mod tracker, which is kind of like a bounty hunter in this world. And so you see and feel and experience the story through him, and so it just feels entirely different.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's a story about this mod tracker, which are these guys and that are or people, I should say, that are hired to find mods. Which, if you're not familiar with mods, if you read Little Bird, they're the strange looking people in the background a lot of the time, which are individuals engineered for specific purposes, certain work or abilities or whatever, and they're essentially, in indentured servitude
mm,
for the most part. And when one takes off, a mod tracker brings them back, or just takes them and sells them to the highest bidder, depending on how clean they do business. But so this is about that guy. He actually was in Little Bird, first appeared in the 3rd issue as Sarge. I'm sure anybody that's read Little Bird is going to remember Sarge because everyone loved that character. So this is him 35 years later, and kind of his origin story and how he got tied. How he initially got tied into sort of like some of the bigger happenings in that universe.
yeah. Well, I know you
And I
said
could just
like
keep going on because there's actually so much to say that
there's
is going on in this book, but I'll just leave it at that for now.
there's so much and I got to check out issue 1 and this is what I will say about like, I know you said it's not a prequel because it's a different story in this world. But man, oh man, as soon as I opened that first page, I felt like I'm back in the world of Little Bird. The art, Ian's art was just it, it's so unique to the story, of how like especially how the mods are drawn and stuff like that. As soon as I opened up that page, I'm like, ah, I'm right back into this world. And it felt so
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. That opening page is just stunning too. But it's all incredible, and every issue is. I sound like a broken record probably when I say this, but every issue really is better than the next. Just in terms of the art, like Ian just he keeps leveling up all the way to the end, and it's yeah, it was just so fun to step foot back into that.
So if someone's listening to this and they haven't had a chance to check out Little Bird, stop what you're doing. Like, go check it out. If you don't listen to me, like it won an Eisner for a reason. um,
I'm looking if I have a copy here to hold up, but I don't.
you can just
Uh,
point. You can just point to your
yeah,
back shelf of
yeah, yeah. There's some
But
back. Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
there, you can just point to your back shelf that award right there that it won because it's such a
Oh,
good book.
yeah, there it is.
So
Yeah.
like it, but as someone like, do you when you're working on a story like Precious Metal, do you keep in mind of like, I'm telling something in a world that maybe people haven't gotten to read yet, or do you just say no, this is going to be something that I'm hoping you are experienced, little bird, so you can enjoy the story?
I guess both and neither. I just wasn't worried about it,
Yeah,
I didn't really think about it, like, I'm not I mean, I definitely, we did you can read them in either order. So there is no pressure to run out and read Little Bird if you haven't read Precious Metal. It's totally fine. In fact, it could be super interesting to read them in the other way around. Um, but and because we did Little Bird like that too, we didn't really like spend a lot of time welcoming people into the world. It was like you open the first page and it's like, boom, you're in this place now. Hang on, things are going to get weird, and that's kind of our approach to this one as well.
so it's one of it's one of those. Do you introduce your kids to the prequels of Star Wars, or do you start them with 4, 5, 6?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm hoping we sort of avoided that again because it's like this isn't Little
It,
Bird's
right,
story,
it's not her
so
origin story.
but you're gonna see it tie in all kinds of interesting ways. There's no question about it. But yeah, no, you can start anywhere. But yeah, no, to answer your question, you do not watch the prequels first. That would be a
No, you
mistake.
don't. You always
Yeah,
start with 4, 5, 6. The
yeah,
way it's done.
exactly.
So where was it for when you guys were creating Lil Bird, that this character of Max, where you're like, hey, did you think right off the bat that there was something there that you wanted to explore this character if you had the
Right.
chance?
Yeah, right off the bat. I was pretty much simultaneously writing Precious Metal in my head as I was writing the last couple of issues of Little Bird. Like as soon as that character came through, I mean, to start, I sort of write my characters off the page. Like
Mm.
I know a lot about a character before they show up, and then once Ian does his designs and they become real, and he has this magic way of just like really creating empathy for a character. You just look at them, he does kind of the bigger eyes and at least it fills me with all kinds of emotions for the characters on the page. But he particularly came, Sarge in Little Bird, whose real name is Max Weaver in Precious Metal. He just came with so much baggage, like right from the first page. Like, and if you've read Little Bird, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I couldn't help it. I just was like a little piece of my brain went and sat over here and just started working on it as I was working on Little Bird over here. So by the time we finished, and Ian was like, "What do you think we should do next?" I was like, "I know exactly what we're doing next because I've already been working on it." Yeah.
So do you do that with a lot of your characters, or like you said, you kind of have them written out in your mind before it goes to page? Like, do you write backstories and stuff for these characters that we might not even get to see? Like, like say for example, someone, your protagonist in Lois Lane. Like, did you have all that kind of? Do you have more written out that we don't get to see in your mind that then helps you tell the story you want to tell?
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't write really any of it out, in any kind of notebook or anything, but I spend just insane amount of time thinking about my characters and spending time with them, and it's why I'm so absent-minded. In the rest of anybody who knows me will say Darcy's just kind of out of it, but it's because I'm off working, and yeah, so I'm yeah, I could you could point to any character and anything I do, and like I can have a book ready to go. I know that much about them. So
So so you knew instantly that as when you're writing Little Bird, you wanted to tell the story of Sarge, kind of 35 years later. Where was it then the process of like, okay, it's something you want to do, but let's make it happen. How did that come about?
pretty. Pretty smoothly. I mean, Ian and I definitely wanted to work together again. And, just because we had sort of built up a really great relationship by the end
Mhm.
of Little Bird, and just sort of, I think, recognized a complementary set of storytelling skills, I guess would be the
Yeah.
easiest way to say it. And so yeah, so it was pretty easy to jump on into it. And obviously Little Bird was a success, so Image was on board. That was just a simple email, and boom, and we were in it. Yeah.
Does because Lil Bird was so acclaimed, does that impact you at all of like wanting to like as you're writing and creating of like, hoping it lives up to, or is this like even though it's in the world, you're like it's still its own separate story that you treat it differently still?
Oh no, there's a pressure there, but for sure. But
Yeah.
I think that it's the pressure I put on myself more than
Mm,
anything, and Ian for him too. We're both perfectionists in our own ways, and I think before we even for or I can only speak for myself, before I even thought about like the pressure of like, oh, this one in Eisner, so we're gonna have to do a great book or something like that. It was more just like if we're if we're returning to this world, then it has to be bigger and better
mm,
than before. Otherwise, what are we doing here? I don't want to just, we could do it because we would maybe sell books, but like that doesn't get me up in the morning.
right.
So yeah, all the pressure came from within, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
And so but I'm sure because of that, you're taking your time to make, like you said, you want to make this bigger and better and scope. And correct me if I'm wrong, but issue one is technically physically bigger than issue one of Little Bird, right? It
Oh,
feels
yeah, no,
oversized.
it's a much bigger book. Like, well, I don't know how big Little Bird was. Maybe just over 200 pages, something
Okay.
like that. Does that sound right? But this is um this is almost 300 pages. It's a beast. Like every issue is like almost 50 pages, and printed on like hard sort of cardstock covers, and it's just a real, you know, and I like that, and I really like the feel of like holding something that feels valuable. I think
Yeah.
that does transcend into the story, like to. Um, so yeah, we've taken a lot of care in the design and every other sort of aspect of the book too.
So where is the process with the characters? Like, do you have a visual of, someone like Sarge who you want Sarge to look like before Ian kind of puts Ian's touch on it? Or how's that creation of a character? Because the characters in Lilbert are so unique, especially those with mods and stuff like that. So how did the character designs come about between you two?
That is almost entirely Ian, really. Like I will, if I'm pointing out any sort of like physical aspects to it, like with Little Bird, I remember specifically saying like she wears an owl mask, you
Mm,
know, but then everything else was just Ian. And Sarge, I think I had a completely different description of him, completely different. I won't even say what it is because I think it was so stupid now that I look back on it. But and then Ian was like, oh, what about this idea? It's like, yeah, that's that's incredible, you know. So, I can take very little credit for that kind of stuff. I will point out things that, you know, that will end up functioning in the story,
mm,
and I will have a specific look in mind when I'm writing it because, I can't get to know these characters well and not know what they look like. But Ian almost always sort of like takes the essence of maybe what I want,
yeah.
or what I'm thinking, and turns it into something completely different and way better. So that's what that looks like. And all the mod designs, that's just him like going crazy and doing his thing, like again, he's just brilliant. Like,
Did it feel like just, hopping on a bike, like, going back into this world with the creative team, like, just it, or was it like, was the creative process easier, difficult, same as it was before because you've all worked together?
in some ways, it was easier. We'd all sort of create a shorthand, so the Winsel's, which I think is a huge part of successful creations
Mhm.
and successful, the creative process being successful. is having relationship because if you're still getting to know each other, it doesn't quite feel like you can always be honest sometimes.
Yeah.
So once Ian and we're like brothers now, so it's like, hey, fuck, that's stupid. Yeah, shut up. And then it's just like, and then we make up or whatever. But like, we can do anything
Yeah.
and get back together. And I don't even know what I was talking about now. What was the
Just like, is it easier to that you
Oh
guys?
yeah, yeah. So yeah, in many ways it was easier, and in some ways it was more more difficult. I don't even know why. I can't really think of it. I think that we really challenged ourselves on this book again. Like I think that when you have like a book that was successful, like Little Bird, there's an easy way to go into the next book. Creatively speaking, and in terms of like what you want to accomplish, and we did not do it. We took the hard road. In some ways, probably made it a little more difficult for ourselves than we should have. Um, but I think that it it bears out fruit at the end of it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, now that Ian's getting to know you as they're working and knows that like you have stories going on in your head of characters, does he just ask you like, who else are you wanting to expand on in these universes that you're creating?
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, we've started another book, and it's doesn't take place in the Low Bird universe. We're doing a shorter series. I think that Precious Metal, if I'm being honest, it almost broke us. It's so big. The story is so intricately designed, and it was a lot. And so, not that this next one isn't also a lot of work, but it's going to be. We just want to just dive into something different,
Yeah.
make it shorter, and it's a different style of storytelling too. So yeah, so not to say we're not coming back to the Little Bird universe, but we are going to take a little break
Right.
from it.
So is Precious Metal is it complete and now it's just waiting to come out? Or are you still in the mode of working on, because it's is it what 6 issues still? Because it's you said it's 300 some pages. How far along are you all with it?
Yeah, so the art's complete, and now we're just sort of going through like design and
Okay.
lettering stages as we sort of hit our monthly deadlines
Yep.
for like getting final files together and stuff. But it's done. There's no chance of delays or anything like that. Which
So you knew
yeah.
right off the bat where the story's going, where you guys are taking it, and you've got this massive story that
Yeah,
you're
oh yeah, exactly. I usually write the ending of a story before I start the beginning. Yeah, I usually write the ending, or at least I know exactly how it ends, and then I start at the beginning and I work my way through to that point. And we have lots of fun in the middle. Things change and stuff like that, but it always ends up at that same place.
yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of and in this story in particular, which is part of what the challenge is like the it's the ending is so particular to some of the things that we experienced in the beginning that it just had to work in a very specific way. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm so I'm so excited, to read more of the series. You got help me preview issue 1, and again, I reading it, it felt just so good, to get to see, a character that I knew a little bit of and get to kind of dig into that a little bit more. Do you grow like attachments as a writer to like these characters a little bit, like they're like your babies, they're your creations?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, like I said, I feel like they're friends almost, and I've heard other writers say that, and
Yeah.
I know exactly what they mean when they say that. And it's and somehow I still enjoy killing them. I don't know what,
Um,
but
Gang, Darcy is just a guest on the show. He is not a friend of the show
yeah,
because he wants.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's total psycho, just so you know.
He just says he's
Uh,
cool with killing his friends. So I just
no,
wanted to let him.
I'll admit, like I cry when I'm writing sometimes.
Yeah.
I sweat. It's a very physical and emotional experience sometimes, and certainly was on this one too. And but it just and sometimes it's just exhilarating.
Yeah.
Like we've got sequences that are just so fun and so wild and weird, and it's great to when we can get into like I know the character arcs, and that stuff happens. The characters kind of take over a little bit, stuff like that, but there are times where it's just like, Ian, like just go crazy for the next 3 pages, and that stuff is really fun too.
Yeah.
always a balance.
So good. Well, Darcy, I feel like could talk to you a lot longer about comics, but I want to respect your time. You've hinted at some stuff. Is there other stuff that you're working on, or is it that you can talk about, or is it just like, nope, it's all precious metal right now?
It's all there are other things,
Yep.
but yeah, no, it's all precious metal. All I care about is that people go out and get this book and read it. I really feel like we put everything we had into it for the last 5 years, and yeah, I just can't wait for people to experience it.
And so it comes out June 5th, correct? And then it's a monthly.
Yeah, June 5th, and every month after for the next 6 months, a big fat book. Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Well, gang, go to your comic shop, put Precious Metal on your list if you haven't yet. Hopefully, if you're watching this, you already have, and you're excited for this series. Darcy, thank you for continuing to create just comics that I love to read, so we get to talk about it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, and I know this is your time is valuable, so I really appreciate you having me on to
Absolutely,
talk about it again.
absolutely, gang. So again, put get Lois Lane the trade if you haven't yet. When it comes out, or pick up back issues at your store if you can still. Uh, get Precious Metal, and if for whatever reason you haven't read Little Bird, do
Come on,
yourself a favor, do it.
get on
Uh,
it.
Darcy, thanks again as always. Where can people follow along with you? Stay up to date with what you got going.
Mostly just on Instagram at DVP Direct. Yeah,
There you go.
it's my
So
handle.
I'll have links as always to Darcy stuff in the description of this video, or if you're listening via podcast, it'll be in the description notes there as well. But as always, hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out. Peace.